Marcus stood frozen in the dirty doorway of the tiny shack, staring at the woman lying on the floor. His legs felt weak, like they might collapse beneath him. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be possible. The woman on the floor was his wife, the wife everyone said had drowned 9 years ago, the wife he had buried, the wife he had cried over for months. But here she was, barely breathing, her skin burning with fever. How could a dead woman be lying here in this terrible place? "Mama, wake up," the little beggar girl whispered, touching the woman's hot face. "Please wake up." The girl looked up at Marcus with frightened eyes. "Why do you know my mama's name?" Hello family, welcome back. Please hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, it really supports our channel. Don't forget to share with your friends and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And please tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Let us go back to where this shocking day began. That morning, Marcus woke up in his luxurious mansion in Victoria Island, Lagos. He had meetings scheduled, business deals to close, and millions of naira to make. He was one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria, with companies across Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Lagos. His driver brought the black Mercedes to the front of the house. Marcus got in, adjusting his expensive suit. The leather seats were cool and comfortable. Everything in his life was perfect, or so it seemed. But Marcus carried a deep sadness inside him. 9 years ago, his wife Grace had disappeared. The police found her clothes by the river. They said she had drowned, that the water had swept her body away. There was a funeral with an empty coffin. His mother had held him while he cried. He never remarried. No woman could replace Grace. She had been everything to him, his best friend, his partner, his love. Losing her had broken something inside him that never fully healed. Now he lived alone in his big house with only his mother and servants for company. He buried himself in work, trying to forget the pain. Money couldn't buy happiness, but at least it kept him busy. The car moved slowly through the crowded streets of Lagos. It was a hot afternoon. People walked on both sides of the road, women selling oranges and plantains, men pushing carts, children playing in the dust. Marcus looked out the window without really seeing. His mind was on the meeting ahead. Then something caught his eye. A small girl sat on the ground near the road. Her clothes were torn and filthy. Her face was covered in dust and sweat. She held out one thin hand to people passing by, begging for money. Something about her face made Marcus's heart skip. He leaned closer to the window, staring. "Stop the car," he said suddenly, his voice sharp. His driver glanced back, surprised. "Sir? But the meeting?" "Stop the car right now." The driver pulled over quickly. Marcus pushed open the door and stepped out into the heat. His expensive shoes touched the dusty, dirty ground. He walked toward the little girl, his heart pounding strangely in his chest. What was it about this child that had made him stop? When Marcus got close to the girl, he stopped and stared. His breath caught in his throat. The girl had big brown eyes, a small nose, and delicate features. She looked exactly like Grace, his dead wife. The same eyes, the same face shape, the same everything. It was like looking at a tiny version of the woman he had loved and lost. How is this possible? Marcus whispered to himself. The girl looked up at him with those familiar eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just kept her small, dirty hand stretched out, waiting for money. Marcus reached into his pocket with shaking hands. He pulled out several thousand naira notes and placed them in her palm. The girl's eyes grew huge. She stared at the money like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Marcus bent down so his face was close to hers. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl looked down and said nothing. "Please, I won't hurt you." "Where is your mother?" Slowly the girl lifted one thin arm. She pointed down the street toward a cluster of broken, rusty houses in the distance. The buildings looked like they might fall down at any moment. Marcus's mind raced with questions. Who was this child? Why did she look so much like Grace? Could it be just a coincidence? No, something deeper was happening here. He could feel it in his bones. "Wait in the car," Marcus told his driver. "Follow that girl slowly. Don't lose sight of her." He got back into the Mercedes and watched. The girl stood up slowly, clutching the money to her chest. Her feet were bare and dirty. She began walking down the street, limping slightly on the hot pavement. The car crawled behind her at a distance. Marcus leaned forward, watching every step she took. His heart was beating fast. Something important was about to happen. He could sense it. The girl turned into a narrow path between two old buildings. The path was filled with trash and dirty water. Marcus had never been to a place like this before. His world was clean offices, air-conditioned cars, and beautiful houses. Stop here, Marcus told his driver. I'll go on foot. Sir, this area is not safe. I don't care. Wait here. Marcus got out and followed the girl down the narrow path. The smell was terrible, rotting garbage and sewage. He covered his nose with his hand but kept walking. The girl stopped at a tiny shack made of old wood and rusty metal sheets. The roof had holes in it. The door hung crooked on broken hinges. She pushed it open and went inside. Marcus waited a moment, his heart pounding. Then he walked to the door and knocked softly. No answer. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark and hot. It smelled awful, like sickness and decay. There was no furniture, just some dirty cloths on the floor. In the corner, Marcus saw a woman lying down, not moving. The little girl knelt beside the woman, touching her face. Mama, she whispered. Mama, wake up. I got money. We can buy food now. The woman didn't respond. Marcus took a step closer. His eyes were adjusting to the darkness now. He could see the woman's face more clearly. His heart stopped. Time seemed to freeze. The woman lying on the floor was Grace. His wife. His dead wife who had drowned 9 years ago. But she wasn't dead. She was right here, lying in this terrible place, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Marcus felt like the ground was disappearing beneath his feet. His whole world tilted sideways. Everything he thought he knew was a lie. How was Grace alive? Where had she been for 9 years? And who was this little girl calling her mama? Marcus grabbed the wall to keep from falling. His legs felt like water. He couldn't breathe properly. This had to be a dream, a terrible, confusing dream. Grace, he whispered, his voice barely coming out. The woman didn't move. Her face was thin and pale. Her lips were dry and cracked. She looked sick, very sick. Marcus said her name louder. Grace. The little girl jumped and looked at him with frightened eyes. Who are you? She asked, her voice shaking. How do you know my mama's name? Marcus couldn't answer. He knelt down beside Grace and touched her face gently. Her skin was burning hot. She had a high fever. He shook her shoulder carefully. Grace, it's me. It's Marcus. Wake up, please wake up. Grace's eyes opened slowly, just thin slits. She looked at him, but her eyes were foggy and confused. She didn't seem to recognize him. Then her eyes closed again. Panic filled Marcus's chest. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and called his driver. Bring the car here now. Right to this house. Hurry. He hung up and scooped Grace into his arms. She was so light, too light. Her body felt like it weighed nothing. She had always been slim, but now she was dangerously thin. The little girl stood up quickly, her eyes wide with fear. What are you doing? Where are you taking my mama? Marcus looked at her, his eyes full of tears. She's very sick. If I don't take her to a hospital right now, she's going to die. You need to come with me. No. Put her down, the girl cried. Please, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Trust me. I'm not going to hurt her. I'm going to save her. But you have to come with us. The girl stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and took his free hand. They walked out of the tiny shack together. The Mercedes had pulled up as close as it could get. The driver jumped out and opened the back door, his eyes wide with shock. Marcus laid Grace gently across the back seat. The girl climbed in beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. Marcus got in front. Drive to Grace Memorial Hospital in Leckie, Marcus ordered. Drive as fast as you can. This is life or death. The driver nodded and pressed the accelerator. The car shot forward, weaving through traffic. Marcus kept turning around to look at Grace. Her breathing was so shallow he could barely see her chest moving. The little girl was crying softly, squeezing her mother's hand. Please don't die, Mama. Please don't leave me. Marcus felt tears running down his own face. He wiped them away quickly. She's not going to die, he said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. I won't let her die. They reached the hospital in 20 minutes. Marcus jumped out before the car fully stopped. He yanked open the back door and lifted Grace into his arms again. He ran through the hospital entrance. Help. I need help right now. Nurses rushed over immediately. They brought a stretcher on wheels. Marcus laid Grace down carefully. The nurses began checking her pulse and temperature, asking rapid questions. What's her name? How long has she been unconscious? Does she have any medical conditions? Marcus tried to answer, but his mind was spinning. Her name is Grace. I don't know how long she's been like this. Please just help her. Do whatever it takes. The nurses wheeled Grace through a set of double doors. Marcus tried to follow, but a nurse stopped him with a gentle hand on his chest. Sir, you have to wait here. The doctors need space to work. We'll update you as soon as we can. The doors swung shut. Grace disappeared behind them. Marcus stood in the waiting area, his expensive suit wrinkled and dirty. The little girl stood beside him, looking small and lost. Her torn clothes stood out in the clean, white hospital. People stared at them, this rich man and this poor street child standing together. Marcus looked down at her. His mind was clearing now, starting to put pieces together. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl looked up at him with those familiar eyes, Grace's eyes. "My name is Joy," she said quietly. "How old are you, Joy?" "I'm 9 years old." 9 years old. The same amount of time since Grace had disappeared. Marcus's heart began to race again. The truth was starting to form in his mind, impossible but undeniable. This child was his daughter. His and Grace's daughter. The baby Grace had been carrying when she vanished. But how? What? What had happened 9 years ago? Marcus felt like his brain was going to explode. He had a daughter. A 9-year-old daughter he never knew existed. This beautiful little girl standing beside him was his own child. But where had they been all these years? Why did everyone think Grace was dead? Nothing made sense. A doctor came out 30 minutes later. He walked straight to Marcus holding a clipboard. "Are you family?" he asked. "Yes," Marcus said quickly. "She's my wife. This is our daughter." The doctor looked surprised but didn't ask questions. "Your wife is very sick. She has severe malaria and extreme malnutrition. Her body is very weak. She hasn't eaten proper food in a very long time." Marcus closed his eyes, pain shooting through his chest. Grace had been starving, living on the streets, suffering, while he lived in luxury. "We're giving her medicine and fluids through and for," the doctor continued. "She should wake up in a few hours. But she needs to stay here for at least a week. We have to build her strength back slowly." "Money is not a problem," Marcus said firmly. "Give her the best care possible. A private room. Whatever she needs." The doctor nodded and went back inside. Marcus sat down heavily in a chair. Joy sat beside him, swinging her dirty feet. They didn't talk. Marcus's mind was too full of questions, spinning and spinning. After an hour, a nurse came out. "You can see her now. She's awake." Marcus and Joy followed the nurse down a long hallway. They entered a private room. Grace was lying in a clean white bed with tubes in her arm. Machines beeped softly beside her. But her eyes were open. Beautiful brown eyes that Marcus had never thought he'd see again. When Grace saw him, tears immediately filled her eyes. "Marcus," she whispered. Her voice was so weak he could barely hear it. Marcus walked to the bed slowly, like he was in a dream. Joy ran to the other side and grabbed her mother's hand. "Mama, you're awake," Joy said, smiling through her tears. Grace smiled weakly at her daughter. Then she looked back at Marcus. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her thin face. "I'm so sorry." Marcus pulled a chair close and sat down. His hands were shaking. "What happened?" he asked. "Grace, where have you been? Everyone said you were dead. There was a funeral. I buried you." Grace closed her eyes and more tears leaked out. "It's a terrible story," she whispered. "So terrible." "Tell me," Marcus said gently. "I need to know." Grace took a shaky breath and began to speak. Her voice was soft and weak, and Marcus had to lean close to hear every word. 9 years ago I was pregnant. Do you remember? We were so happy. We were going to have our first baby. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "I remember. But your mother never liked me," Grace continued. "She wanted you to marry someone else. Someone rich and educated. Someone from a good family. But you chose me instead." This was true. Marcus's mother had been against their marriage from the start. She thought Grace wasn't good enough for her son. But Marcus had loved Grace and married her anyway. "Your mother tried many times to break us apart," Grace said. "But we stayed together. Then I got pregnant. I thought maybe she would be happy then. Maybe she would accept me. But I was wrong." Grace paused, breathing hard. The machines beeped faster. A nurse peeked in, but Marcus waved her away. "One day," Grace continued, "your mother came to our house. You were at work. She said she wanted to take me shopping for baby things. I was so happy. I thought she was finally accepting me." Marcus felt a cold feeling growing in his stomach. "But she didn't take me shopping," Grace said, her voice breaking. "She drove me far outside Lagos, to a place I didn't know. There were men waiting there. Bad men." Grace started crying harder. Joy held her hand tightly, not understanding but feeling her mother's pain. "Your mother gave those men money?" Grace whispered. She told them to take me far away. She said if I ever came back she would kill me and my baby. She said she had people watching. She said I would never be safe. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. His mother? His own mother did this? The men put me in a truck, Grace continued. They drove for hours and hours. Then they left me in a village near Calabar. I had no money. No phone. No papers. Nothing. Her voice was getting weaker but she kept talking. I lived on the streets. I begged for food. Then Joy was born in a small clinic. For 9 years we survived however we could. I did small jobs, washing clothes, cleaning houses. But I was always sick. We had no home. Sometimes we slept outside. Marcus was crying now, tears running down his face. He couldn't stop them. I wanted to find you so many times, Grace said. But I was terrified. Your mother said she would kill us. I believed her. So I stayed hidden. I stayed away. But I never stopped thinking about you. Never. Marcus could barely breathe. Rage was building inside him like a fire. His mother had done this. She had stolen his wife. She had stolen 9 years of his life. She had let him think Grace was dead. She had even arranged a fake funeral. And all this time she had been living in his house, eating his food, pretending to care. Marcus stood up quickly, his whole body shaking with anger. His mother had destroyed everything. She had taken away his wife, his daughter, his happiness. She had let him cry at an empty coffin while Grace suffered on the streets. Where is your mother now? Grace asked quietly, fear in her voice. Marcus looked at her, his jaw tight. She lives with me. In my house. After you disappeared, she told me you ran away. She said you didn't want to be married anymore. Grace's eyes went wide with shock. Then the police found your clothes by the river, Marcus continued, his voice hard. They said you drowned. They said your body was swept away. My mother cried at your funeral. She held me and told me she was sorry for my loss. Marcus's hands curled into fists. All this time she knew. She knew you were alive. She knew about Joy. And she said nothing. He looked at Grace with determination burning in his eyes. I will deal with her. She will pay for what she did. But first you need to rest. You need to get better. Grace nodded weakly. She looked exhausted from talking so much. Marcus turned to Joy, who had been sitting quietly, confused by the adult conversation. He knelt down so he was at her level. Joy, he said gently. Do you know who I am? Joy shook her head, her big eyes staring at him. Marcus took a deep breath. His heart was pounding. I'm your father. Joy's mouth opened in surprise. She looked at her mother. Grace nodded and smiled through her tears. Joy looked back at Marcus. But I never had a father. Mama said my father was far away. She said maybe one day I would meet him. Tears filled Marcus's eyes again. I didn't know you existed. If I had known, I would have searched the whole world to find you. I would have brought you and your mama home. I would have taken care of you both. Joy stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she asked in a small voice, Can I hug you? Marcus couldn't speak. He just opened his arms. Joy moved forward carefully and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. Marcus hugged her back, holding his daughter for the first time in her life. She smelled like dust and dirt in the streets. But Marcus didn't care. This was his child. His little girl. He had missed 9 years, 9 birthdays, 9 Christmases, 9 years of watching her grow. He held her tight and cried. Grace watched them and cried too. After so many years of pain and separation, they were finally together again. Marcus stayed at the hospital all day. He canceled all his meetings. He didn't care about business anymore. Nothing mattered except his family. He sent his driver to buy new clothes for Joy, beautiful dresses, shoes, underwear, everything a little girl needed. When Joy put on the clean clothes, she couldn't stop smiling. She had never worn anything new before. Marcus also bought food, rice, chicken, juice, fruits. Joy ate like she had never seen food before. She stuffed her mouth full, barely stopping to breathe. Marcus watched her, his heart breaking into pieces. His daughter had been starving, living like an animal on the streets, while he ate expensive meals in fancy restaurants. As the sun began to set, Marcus knew what he had to do. I need to go home for a little while, he told Grace and Joy. I need to get some things. And I need to deal with my mother. Grace grabbed his hand, fear in her eyes. Be careful. She's dangerous. Marcus squeezed her hand. She can't hurt us anymore. I promise. He kissed Grace's forehead, then kissed Joy's head. I'll be back soon. He left the hospital and got in his car. During the drive home, he sat in silence. His mind was making a plan. He knew exactly what he was going to do. His mansion in Victoria Island looked beautiful in the evening light. The gates opened automatically. The car drove up the long driveway past perfectly cut grass and flowering trees. This was where Joy should have grown up. This was the life she should have had. Marcus walked into the house. His mother was sitting in the living room watching television. When she saw him, she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Marcus, you're home," she said sweetly. "How was your meeting?" Marcus didn't smile back. He walked straight toward her, his face like stone. His eyes were cold and hard. His mother's smile faded. She looked worried. "What's wrong?" she asked. Marcus stopped in front of her. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but deadly. "I found Grace." His mother's face went completely white. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. She looked like she had seen a ghost. "I found my wife," Marcus said again, each word like a knife. "The wife you told me was dead. The wife you made disappear. I know everything now. Grace told me what you did." His mother stood up quickly, shaking her head. "No. I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about." Marcus laughed, but it was a terrible sound with no happiness in it. "Don't lie to me anymore. You took her away. You paid men to dump her in Calabar. You threatened to kill her. You let me bury an empty coffin. You let me cry for months while you knew she was alive." His mother started crying. "I did it for you. That woman wasn't good enough for you. She came from nothing. No family, no education, no money. You're a rich man. You needed a proper wife from a good family." Marcus felt rage explode inside him. "You didn't protect me. You destroyed my life. You took away my wife. You took away my daughter." His mother froze. "Daughter?" she whispered. "Yes," Marcus said coldly. "I have a 9-year-old daughter. Her name is Joy. She's been living on the streets, begging for food, all because of you." What would his mother say now? How could she justify what she had done? His mother's face crumpled. She sat down slowly, putting her face in her hands. "I didn't know she was pregnant," she said quietly. "I didn't know there was a child." Marcus knew that was a lie. Grace had been visibly pregnant. Everyone knew. But he was too angry to argue about it anymore. "It doesn't matter now," Marcus said, his voice like ice. "What you did was evil. You're not my mother anymore. I want you out of my house tonight. Pack your things and leave." His mother looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. "Marcus, please. I'm your mother. Where will I go? What will I do?" Marcus turned away from her. He couldn't even look at her face anymore. "I don't care. You didn't care what happened to Grace. You didn't care about your own grandchild living on the streets. So I don't care what happens to you." He walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. "You have 1 hour to pack. If you're still here after that, I'll call the police. I'll tell them everything. They'll arrest you for kidnapping." His mother started crying harder, but Marcus didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little bit. He went upstairs to his bedroom and packed a bag with clothes and things he needed. Then he went to the guest room down the hall. It was empty and plain. He decided this would be Joy's room. He would fill it with toys, books, a beautiful bed, everything a little girl could want. He would make it perfect for her. He stood in the empty room and imagined Joy playing there, laughing and happy. The thought made him smile for the first time that day. Outside, he heard a car engine start. He looked out the window and saw his mother's driver loading suitcases into a car. Then his mother came out, walking slowly like an old woman. She got in the car without looking back. The car drove away through the gates and disappeared down the street. Marcus felt nothing as he watched her go. No sadness. No guilt. She had made her choice 9 years ago. Now he was making his. He picked up his bag and went back downstairs. He called the housekeepers and cook into the living room. They all looked nervous and confused. "My wife and daughter are alive," Marcus told them. "They'll be coming home soon. I need you to prepare the best rooms for them. Cook the best food. Make everything perfect. They've suffered for too long. Now they're going to have everything they deserve." The servants looked shocked, but they all nodded quickly. "Yes, sir," they said together. They immediately started rushing around, cleaning and preparing. Marcus got back in his car. His driver took him back to the hospital. It was dark now. The hospital lights glowed bright against the night sky. Marcus went straight to Grace's room. She was sleeping peacefully now, looking much better already. Joy was curled up in a chair beside the bed, also asleep. Marcus sat down quietly in another chair. He watched them both, his wife and his daughter. His family. After 9 long years, he had his family back. A nurse came in to check Grace's vital signs. She saw Marcus and smiled. "Your wife is doing much better," she whispered. "The medicine is working well. She should be able to go home in 3 or 4 days." Marcus thanked her. After she left, he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He was exhausted, but he didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay close to them. The next morning, Grace woke up looking stronger. Her eyes were brighter. Her face had more color. Joy woke up too, stretching and yawning. A nurse brought breakfast for all of them. They ate together like a real family. Marcus told Grace that his mother was gone, that she would never bother them again. Grace cried with relief. "I've been so afraid for so long," she said. "Now that fear is finally gone." Marcus held her hand tight. "Everything is different now. We're going to be a real family. We're going to be happy. I promise you." Grace smiled, and for the first time in 9 years she believed that happiness was possible. For the next 3 days, Marcus came to the hospital every morning and stayed until night. He brought gifts for Joy, dolls, coloring books, pretty dresses. Joy couldn't believe all the beautiful things she was getting. She had never owned anything new before. Everything she ever had was old or thrown away by someone else. Now she had new clothes, new toys, new everything. She smiled and laughed constantly. Marcus loved watching her discover simple joys. Every moment with her was precious. He was learning who his daughter was, what she liked, what made her happy, what made her laugh. On the 4th day, the doctor said Grace could go home. Marcus brought beautiful new clothes for her, a lovely dress and comfortable shoes. When Grace put them on and looked in the mirror, she couldn't believe her reflection. She looked like herself again. Not the sick beggar woman, but Grace. The woman she used to be. Marcus stood behind her and put his hands on her shoulders. "You're beautiful," he said softly. "You've always been beautiful." Grace turned and hugged him tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for finding us. Thank you for not giving up." They left the hospital together. Joy held both their hands, walking between her mother and father. She felt safe for the first time in her entire life. The Mercedes was waiting outside. They all got in. Joy pressed her face against the window, watching Legos pass by. She had walked these streets so many times, begging, hungry, dirty. Now she was riding in a beautiful car, going home with her family. The car turned through big gates and drove up a long road with trees on both sides. Then Joy saw the house. Her mouth fell open. It was the biggest, most beautiful house she had ever seen. It was white and shining with flowers everywhere. "Is this where we're going?" Joy asked in amazement. Marcus smiled. "This is where we live now. This is our home." Joy looked at her mother. Grace was crying and smiling at the same time. "It's real," Grace told her daughter. "We're finally home." The car stopped in front of the house. Marcus helped them out. The front door opened and all the servants came out, smiling and welcoming them. Marcus led Grace and Joy inside. The house was even more beautiful inside, clean and bright with comfortable furniture and pictures on the walls. Joy was afraid to touch anything. She thought she might break something. But Marcus bent down and said, "This is your home. You can touch anything. You can go anywhere. You don't have to be afraid anymore." He took her hand and led her upstairs. He opened a door to a beautiful room painted pink and purple, Joy's favorite colors. There was a big soft bed, shelves full of toys and books, dolls and stuffed animals everywhere. "Is this mine?" Joy asked, unable to believe it. "All yours," Marcus said. Joy ran to the bed and jumped on it. It was so soft, like jumping on a cloud. She laughed and laughed with pure happiness. Grace and Marcus stood in the doorway holding each other. They had been through hell, 9 years of pain, separation and suffering. But somehow they had survived. Somehow they had found each other again. That night, after Joy fell asleep in her new bed, Marcus and Grace sat on the balcony of their bedroom. The stars shone bright above Lagos. The air was warm and peaceful. "I still can't believe this is real," Grace said softly. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and find myself back in that tiny shack." Marcus pulled her close. "You'll never go back there. I promise you. We're together now and nothing will ever separate us again." Grace leaned her head on his shoulder. For 9 years she had lived in fear and poverty. She had suffered things no person should suffer. But now she was safe. Her daughter was safe. They had a home. They had love. Years would pass. Joy would grow up in that beautiful house, go to the best schools, and eventually become a teacher who helped children from poor backgrounds. Children just like she used to be. Grace would start a successful business helping other women who had nothing. And Marcus would use his wealth to build shelters across Nigeria for people living on the streets. But that was all in the future. Tonight they were simply a family reunited. A family that had been torn apart by evil and brought back together by love. Marcus looked at his wife in the starlight. She had survived 9 years of hell and somehow kept her beautiful spirit. She had raised their daughter alone in impossible conditions. She was the strongest person he had ever known. "I love you," he said. "I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day." Grace smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you too. I always have. I always will." They sat together under the stars, thankful for every moment, thankful for second chances, thankful for the miracle that had brought them back together. Sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest mornings. Sometimes what seems lost forever can be found again. And sometimes one moment, one decision to stop and look, can change everything. Marcus had looked out his car window that day and seen a little beggar girl. He could have driven past. He could have ignored her like everyone else did. But something made him stop. Something made him look closer. And that one moment of compassion had given him back everything he had lost. His wife. His daughter. His family. His purpose. Love had won. After 9 years of separation and suffering, love had finally won. And that was the greatest victory of all. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?